You've spoken a lot around so-called capita per GDP recession. So we're sort of staving off actual recessions and the real economic time bomb, or your demographic one you spoke there, through immigration. Is it fair to say that ultimately, you can't do this forever? Australia can only get so big. We've only got so many resources in this country. So either this problem comes home to roost, but maybe technological advances, AI, robots, whatever it is, they could perhaps drastically reduce how much services cost just in time. Is that a sort of broad picture race of what we might be facing in the future decades?
So think of those two things. You're asking, will people power continue to help? What will happen in particular around migration versus the sort of working smarter? Are there new ideas around productivity, new avenues there like AI? The immigration story, Australia has had better immigration policies and had relatively more migrants than most rich nations. But our policies are increasingly struggling. There's a review underway, and early rumours are that we will see an increased focus on who we're getting as migrants. That will be good. But the other challenge is, getting more people is fine, and I think there is a good case for it. We're just not building the homes, or certainly not where people want to be. We're not building the schools, the hospitals, the roads, and the rest of it. Australia currently growing at a Canberra and a half a year, but not providing the infrastructure. So there are limits there. Can we do more on productivity? Yes, we can surf on the back of new technologies like AI. There are some risks around that. And again, you guys were just, seeing that interview around some of the risks with AI. I would say, though, the whole world can get better off new technologies. The question for Australia is, can our political classes come together? Can we get that bipartisanship around the extra reforms to help us?
Tapping into the productivity, I guess. I mean, I've even seen robots making homes, so I guess they might even be able to solve both sides of the equation. And the other thing that I guess we're not hearing from politicians is that as this demographic time bomb matures, if it does, your options on the table are any number of three things, presumably. More tax per GDP, people having to pay more tax, or reducing services, or more user pays. It has to be some combination. We've spoken about the potential solution around tech and so on, but if that doesn't happen, there has to be some combination of those things.
Yeah, or in other words, there will be competition around slices of the pie. You and I would both know that the world of politics means you're going to get a bit of everything. Any solution is going to involve compromises, and that says tax up, some areas of spending down, increased user pays where that's possible. But getting from here to there may be increasingly challenging. If you're looking for good news, I'd note a couple of things. One is the starting point for this IGR is magnificently better in terms of government finances than the last IGR thought it would be. So last IGR, just 2 years ago, thought that current net government debt in Australia as a share of national income, that federal debt would be over 40% of annual income for the nation. In fact, it's only a little over 20%. There's been a remarkable performance, not due to any decision by any politician, really. And in fact, if you look forward 40 years, the expectation is, even if we don't change, that government debt will only be back where it was in 2019-20 as a share of national income, not the end of the world.
Yeah, the weird power of inflation certainly has helped governments. I guess the other thing I wonder is, so people talk tax reform and they say, OK, GST, because that's the big one, get rid of inefficient taxes, that's the way to help out. And that seems to fall at the first hurdle. Could there be other broader changes that we don't anticipate? Say, a lot of governments around the world are struggling like Australia, and there's a global push for companies to pay more tax. And I can hear them shouting already, we can't afford it. But are there these sort of unknowns that could pop up as well? Because it seems every time we talk GST and tax reform, it lasts for about 2 minutes.
And the first thing to note is that reform does mean more than tax reform. You know, there are all sorts of tax reforms I would love to see. But remember, we can run our cities much better than we do. We can reduce overlap in federal and state governments. We can price and regulate our infrastructure, including housing, much, much better than we do. All the way down to things like non-compete clauses. The agreement you have with your employer that governs what you can do next, the ties that bind. If we had better versions of that, reform of that, you could probably increase the Australian economy by about 1.5% in size. That would swamp any likely improvement you could get through a better GST. I'd love to see a better GST. It's just not going to happen. Why does it disappear after 2 minutes? Because the money would go to the states, and the political problems would go to the minister and treasurer of the day, the feds. Regardless of the good economics or potentially around doing that, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, well, and of course, last time that happened, we were supposed to get rid of payroll tax. Look where we are now. Chris Richardson, good to get your thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.